Hey guys, Camper Dad here. We've had a request for freeze drying milk. Now it's one of the things that we've done in the past, but we're going to do it again here, and I'll show you how to freeze dry milk without making a mess in your freeze dryer. Also, I use freeze dried milk in the powder form when I want to make my eggs that I've freeze dried before just a little bit fluffier, or in any recipe that needs powdered milk. My kids who actually love drinking milk say that they like the taste of freeze-dried milk that's reconstituted better than powdered milk. Of course, who doesn't? But I'm going to show you what we do here. First of all, I've had the freeze dryer freezing in test mode. So it's 28 degrees with the trays in it. So they're cold when I pour the milk in. I'm going to turn off the test mode here now and get it ready for unfrozen food. I'm going to say yes, the drain is closed. It's waiting for me to insert the food. The trays are cold now, but I'm going to turn on my scale. I'm going to use about a half a gallon or so. Make sure my scale is zeroed out. I'm going to pour it in this bowl so that I can measure the weight of the milk. I'm going to go to about 700 grams. I'm going to see what that does in the tray. I don't know how deep that's going to be. I'm going to write down 700 grams is my total weight of milk right now. Now, the reason that I have chilled everything first is because I'm going to pour the milk right into the tray in the freeze dryer. Now, I left the silicone mat in so that later it's easier to kind of curl it up, as you've seen me do in other things. I'm going to pour the milk right into the tray. Now I know you can't see this, but it is covering the whole bottom, maybe 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to do another 700 grams of milk. I'm going to carefully push that tray in. I don't want to create too many waves and have it spill out the back. Cleaning out that is not very fun. So I've got 700 grams of milk in each tray. And that turned out to be, maybe I'll actually finish the rest of this. So that's 770 grams. Let me just make sure that I note that I had 700 and 700 and 770. I'm going to add them all together in the end. Do roughly half of this in both trays. All right, carefully push these back in. And I'm going to say yes, my food is inserted. My drain is closed. I'm going to push start. Now you could put the trays in your freezer, your normal freezer, and do the same thing and freeze them. I found this is just convenient, an easy way to do it. It does take a little bit longer in the freeze dryer, but that's why I chilled everything first. I noticed that it brought the temperature up from 28 degrees to now we're 33 degrees. So it's got to freeze that back down. I just found that I make a mess a little bit less if I do it this way. And it's already dropped down to 32 degrees here. So tomorrow sometime, it's going to freeze dry over the night. Tomorrow sometime I'm going to come back and find it, and I'll show you what it looks like once it's freeze dried. It's kind of flaky and everything. We'll put it in bags. Actually, I'll probably put it in jars after we kind of make it more of a powder. But I'll show you how that happens tomorrow. Our milk is done. Here it took about 31 hours to do half a gallon of milk. I've been heating the trays so they're not really cold when they come out. And I've released the vacuum. So we're going to pull the milk out, take a look at it. And yes, it is very dry. Say I do not need more dry time. Complete. There's a fair amount of ice inside the freeze dryer. Obviously milk is a lot of water. But I'm going to defrost. Food has been removed. Start. So now I'm going to weigh the trays with the milk on them because I weighed beforehand, and just record what they each are. They are 770 grams, both of them. So now that I know that, I've already measured my trays as being 652 grams with the silicone mats in them. So that means that there's 118 grams of milk on each tray. And I'll show the math later in all this, but essentially what that means is the majority, like 80% of milk is water that came out in the freeze dryer. So that's why there's so much ice in there. Had I done a full gallon, the ice would have been wrapping around into the trays and it would have taken so much longer to freeze dry. It's a lot better to do half a gallon at a time rather than a full gallon. This might still be going, and eventually it could just go on forever if it's just freeze drying the ice over and over and over again. So I'm going to put this milk now in jars. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is put the milk in the bowl because I'm going to crush it up right now. It's just kind of flaky. So I'm going to get it into the bowl where I can crush it up a little bit more. See, it just comes off in flakes. Kind of looks like snow when it's come down and just frozen and is crusty on top. But it's really light and airy. There's very obviously no water left in this. Now, some of the milk did get under the tray onto the mat, sorry, under the silicone mat onto the tray. And it's dry, but it's just kind of caked on a little bit. And it would have been a lot easier, or rather it will be easier to clean it with the little bit caked on rather than caked on entirely in the tray. I still would use a silicone mat underneath milk to freeze dry it. So I'm just going to use a fork here to crush this up. And maybe a spoon. It might actually be a good idea to put it in the blender, and I may actually do that. I'm going to put the rest of the other tray in the bowl here, and then I'm going to take it to my blender, which is in another room. So when I come back, I will show you what the freeze-dried milk looks like after it's been really crushed by the blender. This is so light and airy. It is, the texture of it is a little bit like styrofoam, but it is so much lighter. Okay, I'm going to go crush this up in the blender. I will be back. Okay, I tried the blender. It didn't actually work to powder it up, and so I just did it with my hands. And now you can see it's just this really fine powder. Actually sparkles a little bit like snow. So this was 1% milk, now powdered. And again, I will show you the formula for how I'm going to figure out how much water needs to go in per tablespoon or quarter cup. I'll figure that out and let you know. But in the meantime, I am going to put it in the jars. This nifty funnel that we use for doing fruit. think I went just a little much here. So just like when you're canning or bottling fruit or jam or whatever, you want to leave a little bit of space in the top of your jars that you've got dry food in. It allows it to vacuum out. And I'll vacuum seal these after we're done, but one of the great things about storing dry foods in jars is that because you aren't heating and melting the seal on the ring, on the lid, you just vacuum it, seal it the way it is. You can just keep reusing it. You don't have to use a new lid every time you vacuum seal it because it's dry. So there you go. Maybe I could have gotten it in 3 jars, but at least this way I'll be able to figure out now if I take a tablespoon of this or a 1/4 cup, maybe even, of this powdered milk, how much water to add to get it back to its original state. 1% milk, now powder. Try this one. Okay, I decided to rehydrate the milk so that you can see what it's like. I'm doing it at my desk because the kitchen where the freeze dryer is running right now is really noisy. So I've got some of the milk here, and I figured out that for every 1/4 cup of powder, it's a 1/2 cup of water. And you can change the math for all of that. That was based on weight, not volume. So I'm going to put a 1/4 cup of the powder in here. Got this blue mat here so that I don't have to clean up my desk quite as much since I'm making a mess. Okay, I'm going to put it in the glass that I'm going to drink from ultimately. Next, because I like cold milk when I'm drinking, I've got some ice water here that I'm going to put in. So 1/2 cup. Try and prevent some of the ice from coming out as best I can. Although I am the type that if there's just a little bit of ice, like just barely, in my milk, and it's that cold, then I really, really like it. So I'm gonna mix here. So much for my blue mat, keeping my desk clean. Incidentally, while the blender didn't work to powder it, to break it up, to powder it, it probably would work really well in this case. Still a few little pieces in there. Most of the time when we rehydrate food, we do it with warm water or hot water, but I don't like warm milk. So I'm doing it with very cold water. It's probably hard to hear me talking over the clanking of the glass. And I think our chunks are pretty well dissolved at this point. This was 1% milk before, freeze-dried into powder, now rehydrated. I'm going to see what it's like. That tastes like just regular milk that just came from the store. That's the best part about freeze-drying your own milk, especially if you're going to rehydrate it later to drink. It tastes just like it was before. A lot of the powdered milks I don't like the taste of, but most of the time I'm going to use this in some of my cooking and whatever. This is one of those cases though where it is probably cheaper to buy powdered milk at the store if all you're going to do is use it in cookies. But if you want stuff stored that you can drink later, or I don't know, maybe you're out on the trail and want to have a glass of milk, wouldn't that be interesting? While you're backpacking with your buddies, you pull out a glass of milk. Maybe I'll try it sometime. Anyway, that's what it was to freeze dry milk. Enjoy it if you do it.